The night is quiet now. The heat of the day has slowly slipped away, leaving only a gentle warmth resting over the wide land beside the Nile. The river moves without hurry. Dark water carries the reflection of countless stars, and every small ripple seems to whisper rather than speak. Somewhere in the distance, reeds bend softly whenever a light breeze passes through them. The sound is so gentle that it almost becomes part of the silence itself. Far beyond the riverbanks, where the desert begins its endless stretch toward the horizon, the sand has finally cooled. The winds that crossed the dunes during the afternoon now move more slowly. They carry only a little dust, brushing quietly against walls built from sun-dried mud bricks. Small homes rest close together beneath the wide Egyptian sky. Their flat roofs hold the warmth of the day, while narrow streets lie empty beneath the moonlight. Most people are asleep. A few oil lamps still burn behind small windows. Their soft yellow light reaches only a short distance before fading into darkness. Somewhere, a dog lifts its head for a moment before settling once more. A donkey shifts its weight beside a wooden fence. The village breathes slowly, as though every person, every animal, and every stone has accepted the peaceful rhythm of the night. Tomorrow will begin early. Long before the first light reaches the eastern horizon, many workers will already be awake. Bakers will prepare their ovens. Farmers will gather simple tools. Boatmen will untie ropes along the riverbank. Scribes will roll open fresh sheets of papyrus. Builders will stretch tired muscles before another long day beneath the Egyptian sun. And many of them, before lifting a single stone or planting a single seed, will drink beer. Not the sparkling drink that may come to mind today, but a thick, nourishing drink made from grain. It is cloudy. Sometimes it is almost like thin porridge. Sometimes it is sweet. Sometimes slightly sour. It fills empty stomachs before sunrise and eases dry throats after hours beneath the burning sky. For countless ordinary workers across ancient Egypt, beer is not simply something enjoyed after work. It is part of work itself. It travels with them through every season. It appears beside fresh bread at sunrise. It waits inside clay jars during the hottest hours. It is carried carefully onto building sites, into workshops, onto river boats, and into quiet homes where tired families gather after sunset. Its story is not really about drinking. Its story is about everyday life. To understand why Egyptian workers loved beer, it helps to forget great temples for a little while. Let the giant statues rest beneath the stars. Leave the royal palaces behind. Instead, follow the narrow village paths where ordinary people live. Listen to quiet conversations before dawn. Watch smoke rising gently from baking ovens. Feel rough sandals pressing against packed earth. History often remembers kings because their names were carved into stone. But the kingdom itself stood because ordinary hands worked every single day. Those hands planted fields. They repaired canals. They carried baskets filled with wet clay. They shaped bricks beneath the hot sun. They pulled fishing nets from quiet waters. They rowed boats loaded with grain. They built walls that still stand thousands of years later. Their lives moved with steady routines, repeating again and again like the slow flow of the Nile itself. Morning always arrived. Work always waited. Bread always baked. Beer was always nearby. As the eastern sky slowly begins to grow lighter, the village gently wakes. The first sounds are almost too soft to notice. A rooster calls somewhere beyond the houses. Someone opens a wooden door. Sandals scrape lightly against packed ground. An elderly woman steps outside carrying a small clay bowl. She pauses for a moment, breathing the cool morning air before the day's heat returns. Nearby, another family stirs awake. A child rubs sleepy eyes while an older brother helps gather bundles of reeds left drying beside the house. Inside many homes, the smell of fresh bread slowly fills the air. Egyptian bread is made in many different shapes. Some loaves are round. Others are longer. Some are coarse with bits of grain still visible. Flour drifts through the room as dough is pressed with practiced hands. Beside the bread waits another familiar sight. Large clay jars. Their surfaces are rough beneath careful fingers. Tiny cracks show years of use. They hold the drink that has quietly become one of the most trusted companions of daily life. Beer. Every household prepares it a little differently. Some recipes have been passed from parents to children for generations. Others change depending on the harvest. One family may prefer a sweeter taste. Another may allow the mixture to ferment a little longer. None of them measure ingredients with perfect precision. Instead, experience guides every movement. They know by touch. They know by smell. They know by watching tiny bubbles appear along the surface. Making beer begins with grain. Much of Egypt depends upon barley and emmer wheat. These crops grow because of the Nile's yearly floods. When the waters rise, they leave behind dark, rich soil that feeds the fields. Without the river, life here would become almost impossible. After harvest, grain fills storage rooms and granaries. Some becomes flour. Some becomes bread. Some begins a different journey. The grain is soaked. It begins to sprout. Then it is dried. Sometimes part of it is baked into special loaves before being mixed again with water. The mixture rests quietly inside large containers while tiny living yeast, invisible to every eye, slowly transforms it. No one in ancient Egypt speaks about microorganisms. They simply understand that patience brings good beer. They have watched the process many hundreds of times. They trust it. As morning sunlight finally touches the village rooftops, workers gather outside. Some carry woven baskets. Others balance wooden tools across their shoulders. Stone hammers knock gently together. Copper chisels catch the first light of dawn. Voices remain calm. There is no need to hurry yet. The longest hours still lie ahead. Before leaving, many pause beside the clay jars. A simple cup is filled. The beer is thick enough that tiny pieces of grain sometimes remain floating inside. It is filling. Nutritious. Cool from the night air. One careful drink. Then another. It settles comfortably in empty stomachs. For many laborers, this is breakfast as much as any loaf of bread. No one treats it as something unusual. Children may drink weaker versions. Older people drink it. Women preparing meals drink it. Farmers drink it. Boatmen drink it. Stone workers drink it. Even scribes, whose hands spend more time holding reed pens than heavy tools, often receive beer as part of their daily provisions. It belongs to everyone. The road leading toward the field slowly fills with life. Morning remains pleasantly cool for only a little while. Workers know this well. They choose steady walking rather than rushing. The desert always teaches patience. Along one narrow path, several young men laugh quietly as they carry hoes across their shoulders. Their conversation drifts between family news, yesterday's harvest, and whether today's work might finish before sunset. One of them carries a small clay jug wrapped carefully in woven cloth. Inside waits beer for later in the day. The jug swings gently with every step. No one worries about bringing it. It is as ordinary as carrying water. Perhaps even more ordinary. Because while water is precious, beer often keeps longer and is safer to drink after the brewing process. It also offers valuable nourishment after hours of physical labor. The journey continues beneath slowly brightening skies. Birds circle above the reeds. Fishing boats begin leaving the shore. The Nile glows softly beneath the rising sun. Everywhere, another ordinary day quietly begins. And like thousands of mornings before it, beer travels alongside the workers, not as a luxury, but as a faithful companion waiting patiently through every long hour beneath the Egyptian sun. The sun continues its slow climb above the eastern horizon, and the cool comfort of early morning begins to fade. Golden light spreads across the fields beside the Nile, touching rows of barley and emmer wheat that sway gently in the faint breeze. For a little while longer, the air still feels pleasant. It carries the scent of damp earth left behind by the river, mixed with fresh straw, warm bread, and distant smoke rising from cooking fires. The workers know this peaceful hour will not last. Before long, the heat will settle across the land with quiet certainty. There will be no escaping it. The desert does not hurry, but neither does it forget. Every day, the sun returns to remind everyone how precious shade can be. For now, though, the village moves with calm purpose. Farmers spread across the fields in small groups. Their sandals press into soft soil that has been carefully prepared through generations of patient work. Irrigation channels carry water from the Nile into rows of growing crops. Some men lift wooden shatups, balancing long poles with smooth, practiced movements to raise water from one level to another. Others guide small streams into thirsty fields where young plants wait beneath the morning light. Each motion is familiar. No one needs to think very much about what comes next. Their hands remember. Their bodies remember. The rhythm has been learned since childhood. A father once showed a son how deeply to place a seed. A grandfather explained when to open a small channel for water. An older neighbor corrected the way a tool rested in young hands. Slowly, year after year, knowledge passed quietly from one generation to the next. There are no written instructions for most of these tasks. The lessons live inside ordinary people. Nearby, women work together outside several homes. One kneels beside a flat grinding stone, slowly crushing grain into flour. The motion is steady and unhurried. Back and forth. Forward and back again. Fine dust gathers around her hands, catching tiny rays of sunlight that enter through the doorway. Beside her, another woman watches a clay jar filled with fermenting beer. She gently removes a cloth covering. The scent is warm and earthy. Tiny bubbles rise through the cloudy liquid. She nods with quiet satisfaction before covering it once again. Brewing requires attention, but not constant worry. The mixture simply asks for time. Time has always been one of ancient Egypt's greatest teachers. The Nile itself teaches patience every year. It rises. It floods. It leaves rich black soil. The water slowly returns to its banks. Seeds are planted. Plants grow. Harvest comes. Nothing happens quickly. Beer follows the same peaceful rhythm. The grain begins one life in the field. Later, it begins another inside the brewery. Many homes prepare enough beer only for their own families. Larger workshops, however, produce much greater amounts. These breweries serve temples, royal estates, work crews, and busy towns where hundreds of laborers depend upon regular supplies. The brewery is already alive with quiet activity. Large clay vats stand shoulder to shoulder inside shaded rooms. Workers move carefully between them, carrying baskets of grain and heavy jars filled with water. The air smells of warm bread, damp grain, and gentle fermentation. It is not unpleasant. In fact, many workers probably associate the smell with comfort. It means food. It means wages. It means another ordinary day unfolding exactly as expected. Several men carry freshly baked bread toward one of the mixing vats. These loaves are not meant for breakfast. They have been baked especially for brewing. The bread is broken apart and mixed with water until it slowly dissolves into a thick mixture. More grain is added. Then everything is stirred together using long wooden paddles. The work is slow. The paddles move in wide circles. Splash. Turn. Splash. Turn again. Nothing is rushed. The mixture grows smoother with every movement. Across the room, another worker seals finished beer inside large storage jars. Each jar is carefully closed to protect its contents. Some may remain here only briefly before being carried to nearby homes. Others will travel farther, loaded onto boats drifting along the Nile toward larger settlements. The river connects nearly every part of Egypt. Boats move steadily with its current. Some carry stone. Some carry wood. Some carry grain. And many carry beer. Along the riverbank, the morning has become busier. Wooden boats rest side by side against simple docks made from packed earth and timber. Fishermen sort nets that dried overnight beneath the stars. Rope creaks softly as cargo is lifted aboard. A young boatman pauses beside a clay jar before beginning his journey. He drinks slowly. Not because he wishes to celebrate. Not because he wishes to escape his work. He drinks because the day ahead will be long. The river is gentle today, but rowing remains hard labor. Arms grow tired. Hands become sore. Shoulders ache beneath hours of steady effort. Beer offers strength as much as comfort. Many workers receive it as part of their payment. In modern times, wages often arrive as coins or paper. In ancient Egypt, payment is frequently measured in food. Bread. Beer. Grain. Sometimes oil. Sometimes cloth. Sometimes fish or vegetables. Beer holds real value. It feeds families. It fills empty stomachs. It helps workers continue through difficult days. Farther south, where enormous building projects slowly rise from the desert floor, another group of laborers begins its morning. The sound here is different. Stone echoes beneath careful blows from wooden mallets. Copper chisels scrape against limestone. Heavy blocks slide across prepared paths coated with wet mud to reduce friction. The movements are coordinated. Dozens of workers pull together. Their breathing falls into steady rhythm. No one shouts loudly. Instructions are simple. Experienced foremen watch carefully, guiding the work with calm voices. These builders are not slaves in chains, as many old stories once imagined. Many are skilled workers who receive food, housing, clothing, and regular supplies of beer for their labor. Some spend months working near royal construction sites before returning home to their villages during different seasons. They know each other's families. They celebrate births. They mourn losses. They share meals together beneath simple shelters built from reeds and wood. During breaks, they sit quietly in whatever shade they can find. Clay cups pass from hand to hand. Beer cools dry throats. Someone tears apart a fresh loaf of bread. Another worker shares onions harvested only days before. No feast takes place. Only ordinary lunch. Yet these simple moments become some of the most peaceful parts of the day. The workers remove their sandals for a little while, rubbing tired feet covered with fine desert dust. One man leans back against a mud brick wall. Another stretches aching shoulders. No one speaks very much. The silence feels comfortable. They have worked beside one another for many seasons. Words are not always necessary. A soft wind carries dust across the open ground before disappearing once again into the bright distance. The sun now stands much higher. Its warmth reaches every stone. Every tool becomes hotter to the touch. Sweat gathers beneath linen clothing. Faces shine beneath the growing heat. The day's hardest hours have arrived. Even the birds seem quieter now. Many seek shelter among palm trees lining the river. Animals rest whenever possible. The entire landscape slows. Yet work continues. Egypt depends upon these ordinary people. Without farmers, there is no grain. Without brewers, there is no beer. Without potters, there are no jars. Without boatmen, supplies cannot travel. Without builders, temples, homes, workshops, canals, and storehouses cannot stand. Every person supports another. Life moves like the gentle current of the Nile itself. No single drop creates the river. Together, countless drops become something much greater. The same is true of the villages stretching across ancient Egypt. Each family contributes something. One grows flax. Another fishes. Another shapes pottery from smooth river clay. Another raises cattle grazing along fertile banks. Another spends long hours weaving linen beneath shaded courtyards. Each evening, these different paths return home. Children greet tired parents. Cooking fires are lit once more. Clay jars are opened again. Beer appears at the center of simple meals, just as naturally as bread resting beside it. Back in the village, an elderly brewer sits quietly outside his home while watching younger relatives continue the day's work. His hands have grown rough after decades spent lifting grain and stirring great vats. Tiny scars cover his fingers, each one carrying a memory too ordinary to ever become part of royal history. He remembers good harvests. He remembers poor ones. He remembers years when the Nile flooded exactly as hoped, leaving fields rich and dark. He remembers years when everyone waited anxiously for waters that seemed slower to arrive. Through every season, people continued brewing. Because whenever grain could be spared, beer remained one of life's most dependable comforts. He watches his granddaughter carry fresh water from the river. She smiles softly as she walks, balancing the heavy jar with practiced ease. Soon she will help prepare tomorrow's batch. Perhaps years from now, she will teach her own children exactly as she learned today. Not through written lessons. Not through speeches. Only through quiet mornings spent together beside clay jars filled with grain, water, and patience. The sun slowly begins its long journey westward. The shadows lengthen almost unnoticed. The brightest heat gradually softens. Workers lift their heads toward the changing light. Another few hours remain before evening. Their muscles ache a little more now. Hands feel heavier. Feet carry the dust of another long day. Yet somewhere nearby, beneath the shade of a simple shelter or inside the cool darkness of a mud brick home, fresh beer waits inside carefully sealed jars, promising a familiar moment of rest when the day's labor finally comes to a peaceful close. The afternoon settles gently across the valley as the sun begins its slow journey toward the western desert. The light changes almost without anyone noticing. The bright white glare of midday becomes softer, taking on warm shades of gold that rest quietly upon the fields, the river, and the roofs of countless mud brick homes. Shadows grow a little longer with every passing moment, stretching across narrow paths where workers have walked since before sunrise. The hardest hours of the day are slowly passing. No one speaks about them very much. They simply endure them. The people of ancient Egypt understand that the sun follows its own steady path. It cannot be hurried, and it cannot be delayed. The only thing a person can do is move patiently beside it, one task after another, until evening finally arrives. In the fields, the pace becomes a little slower. Not because the work is finished. There is always more work waiting. But tired muscles naturally ask for gentler movements after many hours beneath the heat. A farmer wipes his forehead with the edge of his simple linen cloth. His hands are rough from years of lifting tools and working the earth. Fine dust has settled into every crease of his skin. His sandals are coated with dried mud from the irrigation channels. He pauses beside a narrow stream of water flowing from the Nile. The current is quiet. Dragonflies drip just above its surface. Tiny fish dart between waving plants beneath the water. For a few moments he simply watches. There is comfort in familiar sights. He has watched this same canal through every season of his life. As a small child he followed his father here. Later he walked beside his older brothers. Now his own children are beginning to learn the same paths. Generations pass. The canal remains. Nearby, another worker carefully adjusts a small earthen barrier, allowing water to flow into a different section of the field. He does not rush. The movement is slow and thoughtful. Too much water could damage young plants. Too little would leave them thirsty beneath tomorrow's sun. Every decision matters. Not because it is dramatic. Because it is ordinary. The quiet success of ancient Egypt depends on thousands of small choices made by ordinary people every day. A woman carrying woven baskets approaches the edge of the field. Inside the baskets are fresh loaves of bread wrapped in linen cloth. Beside them rests a small clay jug. She smiles gently as family members gather beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. The meal is simple. Bread. A few onions. Some dried fish. Perhaps a handful of dates if the harvest has been kind. And beer. The clay jug is opened with familiar hands. The drink inside is cool compared to the warm afternoon air. Each person drinks slowly. No one empties the vessel in great haste. There is enough for everyone. The thick liquid carries tiny grains that settled during the journey. Someone gently stirs the cup before taking another sip. Conversation remains soft. Children speak quietly while eating. An older woman asks about tomorrow's work. A young man wonders whether the river will rise a little higher this season. No one raises their voice. The afternoon itself seems to encourage calm. Even laughter is gentle. Beyond the fields, along one of the busy roads leading toward a growing town, merchants continue their daily journeys. Their donkeys carry baskets filled with vegetables, woven mats, pottery, and jars of grain. Some merchants travel only a few villages away. Others have come from much farther along the Nile. The road is dusty. Each step sends a small cloud rising around their feet. Palm trees offer occasional patches of welcome shade. Whenever travelers meet, they greet one another with quiet familiarity. Many have crossed these same roads for years. They recognize faces long before names are spoken. One merchant stops beside a roadside shelter built from wooden poles and bundles of reeds. Inside, several travelers are already resting. Clay jars stand in one corner, half buried in cool sand to help keep their contents pleasant despite the afternoon warmth. Beer waits there beside water. The travelers sit together without hurry. One removes his sandals, rubbing sore feet that have carried him many miles. Another stretches tired legs while watching dust drip lazily across the road outside. The shelter is peaceful. No one feels the need to rush back into the heat before they must. Ancient travel is measured differently than modern travel. Distance is accepted. Waiting is accepted. The road itself becomes part of the journey. Farther north, near one of Egypt's larger workshops, the steady sound of craftsmen fills the afternoon air. A potter turns his wheel slowly. His hands guide wet clay into graceful shapes that seem almost to rise by themselves. Water glistens upon the spinning surface. The clay feels cool despite the warm day. Nearby, rows of finished jars dry quietly beneath woven covers that protect them from direct sunlight. Many of these jars will eventually hold beer. They are carefully shaped for exactly that purpose. The potter understands this well. Each vessel must be strong enough to survive travel by boat. Its mouth must be wide enough for filling. Its sides must be thick enough to protect the precious drink inside. He has made thousands of them. Perhaps tens of thousands. Most will never carry his name. Yet his work touches countless lives. Every family that lifts one of his jars unknowingly shares a small part of his skill. Not far away, another workshop hums with quieter sounds. Here, women sit together weaving linen. Wooden looms stand beneath shaded roofs where the air moves gently through open walls. Thread passes carefully between patient fingers. Back and forth. Up and down. The rhythm is peaceful. Children sit nearby, playing quietly with simple toys carved from wood or shaped from clay. An elderly grandmother watches over them while continuing her own weaving. She tells stories in a calm voice. Not stories of kings. Not stories of great battles. Instead she remembers neighbors, old harvests, unusual floods, weddings, births, and seasons when everyone worked together repairing canals after heavy water damaged the banks. These are the memories that remain closest to ordinary people. Small moments. Shared work. Simple kindness. The children listen while their hands continue small tasks of their own. They are learning without realizing it. Not only weaving. They are learning patience. They are learning rhythm. They are learning how peaceful work can become when repeated day after day. Across the river, fishing boats drift quietly with the current. The wind has become softer now. Long nets disappear beneath calm water before rising again with silver flashes of fish caught inside. The fishermen move carefully to avoid tangling the ropes. Their muscles ache from pulling heavy nets throughout the day. Still, no one complains loudly. The river has always asked for effort. In return it offers life. One fisherman opens a small clay container tucked safely beneath the shade of the boat's woven covering. Inside is beer prepared before dawn by his wife. He drinks while gazing across the wide river. The taste is familiar. Comforting. He has carried nearly the same meal every working day for as long as he can remember. His father did the same. His grandfather likely did as well. The beer reminds him of home. Of cool mornings before sunrise. Of children still asleep beneath woven blankets. Of warm bread fresh from the oven. Even far from shore, the simple drink carries those memories with it. The Nile itself seems almost alive in the afternoon light. White birds glide low across the water. Papyrus plants sway gently near the banks. Small insects dance above quiet pools where the current slows. Everything moves with calm certainty. Nothing appears rushed. Time stretches comfortably across the landscape. It is easy to understand why ancient Egyptians built their lives around this river. Every season begins here. Every harvest begins here. Every loaf of bread begins here. Every jar of beer begins here. Without the Nile there would be no grain. Without grain there would be no brewing. Without brewing, one of the most familiar comforts of everyday life would quietly disappear. As afternoon slowly slips toward evening, activity begins to change. Workers are not yet finished. But thoughts begin turning toward home. A builder sets down his hammer for a moment and rolls tired shoulders. Another carefully stores copper tools inside a wooden chest. Foremen quietly inspect the day's work before covering unfinished stone with woven mats to protect it overnight. The work will continue tomorrow. There is no expectation that everything must be completed today. Ancient construction often lasts for years. Sometimes decades. Patience is built into every project. The same patience lives inside the people themselves. Along a narrow village path, a young boy waits beside the road. He watches carefully as workers begin returning from distant fields. Whenever he recognizes someone, his face brightens. Soon he spots his father walking slowly with several neighbors. The man carries a wooden hoe across one shoulder and an empty clay jug hanging from the other. The boy runs forward. His small sandals scatter dust behind him. His father smiles. It is a quiet smile, softened by exhaustion. Without saying very much, they begin walking home together beneath the warm golden light of the setting sun. The village welcomes them back with familiar sounds. Goats call from small pens. Chickens wander freely between houses. The scent of fresh bread once again drifts through the evening air. Cooking fires begin to glow softly as smoke rises into the calm sky. Women prepare simple meals while children help gather water, stack firewood, or sweep the floors of their homes. Inside many houses, clay jars are opened once more. Fresh beer is poured into simple cups. Not as a celebration. Not as a rare treat. Simply because another day has been honestly lived. Another day has been worked with patient hands. Another day has brought food to the table. Families gather together on flat rooftops where the evening breeze feels cooler than inside the house. They eat slowly while watching the sky change from gold to deep orange. Then orange to purple. The first stars begin appearing one by one above the quiet valley. The air carries distant sounds of conversation drifting gently from neighboring homes. Somewhere, someone softly sings while finishing the last task of the day. The Nile continues flowing through the darkness exactly as it did yesterday, exactly as it will tomorrow. And beside its timeless waters, with bread resting on worn wooden trays and cool beer waiting in well-used clay cups, another peaceful evening settles over the ordinary workers whose steady lives quietly shaped the greatness of ancient Egypt. Evening settles gently over the Nile Valley, and the last warmth of the day lingers in the stones beneath tired feet. The sky above ancient Egypt slowly changes from soft purple to a deep shade of blue, and one by one, countless stars appear across the quiet heavens. There are no bright lamps to push away the darkness. The moon, the stars, and a handful of small oil flames become the night's gentle companions. The village grows quieter with every passing moment. The busiest hours are over. The fields have emptied. The workshops have fallen silent. The boats have been pulled safely onto the riverbank or tied carefully to wooden posts where the gentle current rocks them almost too softly to notice. A cool breeze moves across the water. It carries the scent of wet reeds, fresh mud, and distant palm trees. After the long heat of the afternoon, the air feels wonderfully light against sun-warmed skin. Families remain together outside their homes for a little while longer. The flat roofs of mud brick houses become peaceful gathering places. During the hottest months, many people choose to spend much of the evening there, enjoying every small breath of cool air before sleep. Children sit close beside their parents. Some are still awake, although their eyes have begun to grow heavy. An older brother quietly tells his younger sister about a bird he saw beside the river earlier that morning. Their mother listens while carefully repairing a woven basket that has begun to loosen around its edges. Beside her rests a clay cup filled with beer. She lifts it now and then, taking small, unhurried drinks while her hands continue their familiar work. Nothing about the evening feels rushed. There is nowhere important to go. Tomorrow's work will come soon enough. For now, there is only this peaceful hour between labor and sleep. Nearby, an elderly man leans comfortably against a low wall built from mud bricks. His face carries deep lines shaped by many years beneath the Egyptian sun. His hair has turned almost completely white, and his movements have become slower than they once were. He no longer spends long days carrying heavy loads. Instead, he offers something just as valuable: experience. Younger workers often come to him with simple questions. How should a cracked irrigation channel be repaired? When is the best time to sow grain after the flood waters retreat? How long should freshly harvested barley dry before brewing begins? The old man answers without hurry. His knowledge has not come from books. It has come from thousands of ordinary mornings. Thousands of careful observations. Thousands of small mistakes quietly corrected over many years. He remembers seasons that younger people have never known. Years when the Nile rose unusually high. Years when the flood came late. Years when storms damaged village storehouses. Years when harvests filled every granary until there seemed to be grain enough for everyone. Through every season, one thing remained familiar. The brewing continued. Sometimes there was more. Sometimes there was less. But as long as grain could be spared, beer remained woven into the fabric of daily life. The old man smiles gently as he watches his grandson carry another clay jar into the house. The boy is careful. Both hands support the heavy vessel. His father has already reminded him many times that a broken jar means many hours of lost work. Clay is valuable. Grain is valuable. Time is valuable. The child understands this, even if he is still too young to explain it in words. Inside the home, the evening meal is nearly finished. The room is simple. The walls are smooth but uneven, shaped by hands rather than perfect tools. A woven mat covers part of the floor. Clay storage jars stand neatly against one wall. A few wooden stools surround a low table. There is very little that could be called luxury. Yet there is comfort. Fresh bread still carries warmth from the oven. Cooked lentils rest inside a shallow bowl. A small dish holds onions and herbs gathered earlier in the day. Another contains dried fish from the river. Beside every meal waits beer. The family shares it naturally. No one thinks of it as unusual. The youngest children drink a weaker version prepared especially for them. Adults enjoy a stronger brew after the day's work. The drink nourishes as much as it refreshes. Its grain carries energy that tired bodies welcome after long hours beneath the sun. Outside, the narrow streets begin to empty. Doors close gently. Oil lamps burn behind small windows. A donkey settles onto folded legs after carrying heavy loads throughout the afternoon. Goats lie quietly together inside simple pens built from wooden branches. Even the dogs bark less often now. The village itself seems ready for rest. Only a few people remain awake. Among them are the bakers. Their work often begins while others are preparing for sleep. Inside a warm bakery, fresh flour covers the work table in a thin white layer. Large bowls filled with dough rest beneath cloth coverings. The air smells rich with grain and yeast. A baker kneads another batch with slow, practiced movements. His strong hands press, fold, and turn the dough again and again. Beside him, his daughter prepares the ovens. She gathers dry reeds and small pieces of wood collected earlier in the day. Soon the ovens will glow with gentle heat. Before dawn, fresh bread must be ready. The village depends upon it. Some of those loaves will be eaten at breakfast. Others will become part of tomorrow's brewing. Bread and beer remain closely connected. One helps create the other. Together they form the foundation of everyday meals. Farther along the village road, a brewery remains quietly active. The day's final tasks are not yet complete. Several workers inspect large clay vats resting beneath shaded shelters. One brewer lifts the cloth covering from a fermenting vessel. He leans close for a moment. The smell tells him much. The mixture is developing well. Tiny bubbles rise slowly through the thick liquid. Everything appears exactly as expected. He smiles almost without thinking. Successful brewing rarely brings excitement. Instead, it brings quiet satisfaction. The work has gone well. Tomorrow's beer will nourish many people. That is enough. The brewer replaces the covering with careful hands. Nearby, another worker seals finished jars using clay stoppers and woven fiber. Each jar receives a simple marking so its contents can later be identified. Some are meant for nearby homes. Others belong to larger work crews. A few will travel by boat to distant settlements farther along the Nile. The river connects them all. As the brewery grows quieter, the workers wash their hands using water drawn from a nearby storage jar. Grain clings to their fingers. The scent of fermentation follows them even after they leave. Their clothing carries traces of the brewery wherever they go. Family members recognize the smell immediately. It has become part of everyday life. Beyond the village, the Nile glides peacefully beneath the stars. Several fishermen remain awake. Night fishing often brings different opportunities than daytime work. The water is calmer now. The sounds of the village have faded into the distance. Only gentle splashes break the silence as oars dip slowly into the dark river. A lantern hangs from the front of one small boat. Its soft flame dances with every tiny wave. The light reflects upon the water in long golden lines that stretch and bend before disappearing into darkness. The fishermen speak quietly. There is no reason to raise their voices. The night itself encourages silence. One of them reaches for a clay cup resting safely beside a bundle of folded nets. Inside is beer prepared that morning. It is no longer especially cool. Even so, it offers welcome refreshment after hours spent rowing. He drinks slowly while watching the stars reflected in the river. Above him, the same constellations watched over his father, and his grandfather, and countless generations before them. The stars change little. The river changes little. The routines of ordinary people also remain remarkably steady across the centuries. Not far away, a young scribe sits alone beneath the light of a small oil lamp. His work is different from that of the farmers or builders. His hands are smoother. His fingers hold reed pens instead of stone hammers. Before him lies a sheet of fresh papyrus. Carefully, he records deliveries arriving at a nearby storehouse. Several sacks of grain. Bundles of flax. Clay jars filled with beer. Every item must be counted. Every quantity carefully noted. The scribe dips his pen into black ink. His writing is neat and measured. Mistakes waste valuable papyrus. He has practiced these symbols since childhood. Years of careful study prepared him for this quiet responsibility. Even his work connects to beer. Payments to workers must be recorded. Supplies moving between villages must be counted. Storehouses must know exactly how much grain remains for future brewing. Nothing exists in isolation. Every occupation touches another. The farmer grows grain. The brewer transforms it. The potter shapes the jars. The boatman carries them. The scribe records them. The laborer drinks them after a long day's work. The entire community moves together like the slow current of the Nile itself. As midnight approaches, cool air settles across the valley. Families have gone to sleep. Many rest on rooftops beneath the open sky. Others sleep inside their homes where thick mud brick walls help keep the rooms comfortable after the day's heat. Simple woven mats cover the floor. Linen blankets protect against the slight chill that sometimes arrives before dawn. The quiet breathing of sleeping children fills the darkness. Parents rest deeply after another day of honest labor. Tomorrow will begin long before sunrise. The ovens will glow once again. The grain will be ground. The boats will untie from their moorings. The fields will welcome familiar footsteps. The breweries will stir with gentle activity. Fresh bread will leave warm ovens. Beer will once again be poured into worn clay cups whose smooth rims have touched the hands of generations. For the people of ancient Egypt, these routines are not ordinary because they lack meaning. They are ordinary because they hold life together. Each loaf of bread, each handful of grain, each carefully brewed jar of beer, each sunrise beside the Nile. Together they create a quiet rhythm that continues day after day, season after season, carrying countless humble workers gently through their lives beneath the endless Egyptian sky. Before the first color returns to the eastern horizon, while the stars still shine brightly above the Nile, the ancient world begins to stir once again. Night has not completely released its hold on the land. The village rests beneath a blanket of soft darkness, broken only by the quiet glow of a few oil lamps that have burned through the night. Their small flames flicker behind narrow doorways, casting warm patterns across smooth mud brick walls. The air is wonderfully cool. It carries a freshness that will disappear only a few hours from now, when the desert sun once again climbs into the white Egyptian sky. This is the hour that many workers quietly appreciate the most. It belongs neither to yesterday nor fully to today. It is a peaceful moment between effort and effort. The Nile flows almost silently beside the sleeping villages. The river seems darker than the sky itself, yet its gentle movement never truly stops. Water that passed one village during the night will greet another before sunrise. Long before written calendars and clocks marked the passing of hours, the river offered its own steady measure of time. A fisherman already stands upon the bank. He has been awake for some time. His boat waits where it was tied the evening before, its wooden hull gently touching the shore with each tiny wave. He pauses before climbing aboard. For a few quiet moments he simply listens. The distant call of a night bird. The rustle of reeds bending in the breeze. The soft splash of fish somewhere beyond the shoreline. These sounds have welcomed him every morning for many years. He would notice immediately if one were missing. They have become part of the rhythm of his own life. Behind him, in the small home he has just left, his wife prepares the first meal of the day. She works quietly so the youngest children may sleep a little longer. Fresh bread baked during the night rests beneath a woven cloth. Beside it stands a familiar clay jar. She removes its simple stopper and pours thick beer into a small cup. The drink catches the faint light of the oil lamp. It is cloudy, rich with grain, and gently fragrant. She hands it to her husband before he leaves. Neither of them says very much. There is no need. The same quiet exchange has happened countless mornings before. He accepts the cup with grateful hands. The first drink is slow. Comforting. It warms him gently despite the cool morning air. When he finishes, he returns the cup. She smiles softly. Then he steps into the darkness, carrying his folded fishing nets toward the waiting river. Across the village, other homes are waking in much the same way. Wooden doors open one after another. The sound is soft but familiar. Sandals touch packed earth. Someone coughs gently after rising from sleep. A child turns over beneath a linen blanket before drifting back into dreams. The village awakens little by little, never all at once. In one house, a grandmother has already begun grinding grain. The large stone beneath her hands has become smooth after decades of use. Back and forth. Forward. Back again. The sound is slow and steady. The rhythm is almost like breathing. She remembers learning this task when she was no older than her granddaughter, who now sits nearby rubbing sleepy eyes. The little girl watches every movement with quiet curiosity. Soon enough she will help. Not because anyone forces her. Because this is simply how knowledge moves through generations. One pair of hands teaches another. The grandmother pauses for a moment and reaches toward a small clay bowl resting beside the grinding stone. Inside is a little beer left from the previous evening. She drinks only a few careful mouthfuls before returning to her work. Her body is no longer young. Grinding grain requires strength. The familiar drink offers gentle nourishment before the long morning begins. Farther down the narrow lane, a potter has already lit a small fire. His workshop smells of damp clay and warm ash. Rows of unfinished jars stand quietly beneath woven coverings, waiting for another day's careful attention. He kneels beside a lump of river clay that was collected several days earlier. It has rested beneath damp cloths to keep it workable. His fingers press gently into the cool surface. The clay yields without resistance. He closes his eyes for just a moment. He knows immediately whether the moisture is right. Years of practice have taught him more than words ever could. Soon his will begins to turn. Slowly at first. Then with smooth, steady motion. His hands rise around the spinning clay. A vessel begins to appear. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Almost as though it has always existed inside the clay, waiting patiently to be revealed. Many of today's jars are intended for beer. The potter knows the brewers personally. Some have been his neighbors since childhood. He understands exactly how they prefer the shape of the neck, the thickness of the walls, and the balance of the base. Each jar is made with care because he knows what it will hold. Nearby, the village bakery glows warmly against the fading darkness. The ovens have been burning for hours. Inside, the air is thick with the comforting scent of baking bread. One baker removes a row of fresh loaves using a long wooden paddle. Steam rises gently into the cool air. The crusts are golden brown. Some loaves will be carried directly to nearby homes. Others are stacked neatly inside woven baskets destined for work crews gathering outside the village. A young apprentice watches closely. He has only recently begun helping in the bakery. His teacher explains very little. Instead, he demonstrates. The apprentice learns by watching. By repeating. By making small mistakes. By trying again. Every loaf teaches something. Every morning brings another lesson. Behind the bakery, another group prepares grain for brewing. Several women spread damp barley across woven mats where the first light of dawn will soon reach it. The grain has begun to sprout. Tiny green tips are just becoming visible. They examine it carefully. Too little growth, and the grain is not ready. Too much, and valuable sweetness will be lost. Their eyes have learned to recognize the perfect moment. No measuring tools are needed. Only experience. One woman gently scoops a handful into her palm. She rubs the grains between her fingers. The scent is sweet and fresh. She nods quietly. Today is the right day. The grain will soon be dried before becoming part of another batch of beer. Nothing is wasted. The roots that remain. The leftover grain. Even the thick sediment left after brewing often finds another purpose, feeding animals, or enriching the earth. Life in ancient Egypt rarely allows useful things to be thrown away. Every harvest demands too much labor. Every grain carries too much value. As dawn finally begins to brighten the eastern sky, the village changes once more. The stars slowly disappear. Birdsong grows louder among the palm trees. The first rays of sunlight touch the highest leaves before slipping downward across rooftops and narrow streets. Children emerge from their homes carrying small baskets. Some fetch water. Others gather reeds. A few simply follow older family members, eager to feel useful even if their tasks remain very small. The adults smile gently. Everyone begins somewhere. One boy struggles to lift a basket that is only half full. His father quietly removes a few items, making the load lighter. The child beams with quiet pride. He carries the basket the rest of the way without complaint. Lessons like these happen every day. Patience is rarely spoken about. It is simply practiced. Near the edge of the village, several builders gather before beginning the walk toward a construction site. Their linen garments are clean but simple. Each carries familiar tools. Wooden mallets. Copper chisels. Stone hammers polished smooth by years of use. One worker arrives carrying 2 large clay jugs suspended from a wooden yoke across his shoulders. One contains water. The other contains beer prepared only yesterday. The men greet him warmly. No one questions why he has brought it. It is expected. The beer will be shared throughout the day during moments of rest. It belongs to everyone. As they begin walking together, their conversation remains calm. One speaks about repairing the roof of his home before the next flood season. Another wonders whether his oldest daughter will soon marry. A third quietly mentions that this year's barley appears especially healthy. Their words move gently between work and family, just as they have for years. Kings are rarely mentioned. Great monuments almost never appear in their conversations. Their attention rests upon the people they love and the work waiting before them. Along the riverbank, boats are once again preparing to leave. Boatmen untie thick ropes damp with morning dew. Cargo is checked carefully. Grain. Pottery. Linen. Bundles of papyrus. Clay jars filled with beer, cushioned carefully with woven straw to protect them during the journey. Each vessel represents many hours of labor. The farmer grew the barley. The brewer transformed it. The potter shaped the jar. The boatman now carries it onward. Each person depends quietly upon the others. As the boats drift into the gentle current, the rising sun paints the Nile with shimmering bands of gold. The water sparkles so brightly that it becomes difficult to look directly at its surface. The river seems alive with light. The day has begun once more. Across fields, workshops, breweries, kitchens, and riverbanks, thousands of ordinary workers step into another familiar morning. Their routines may appear simple, but together they sustain one of the world's longest-lasting civilizations. And in nearly every home, every workshop, every boat, and every gathering of laborers, a humble clay jar of beer waits patiently, ready to nourish tired bodies and accompany another long, peaceful day beside the timeless waters of the Nile. As the morning grows brighter, the gentle coolness that welcomed the first workers slowly begins to disappear. The sunlight spreads across the valley in long golden bands, touching the tops of date palms before reaching the narrow lanes between the houses. Shadows become shorter with each passing moment. The village, which had awakened quietly before dawn, is now fully alive. Smoke rises from many small ovens. The scent of fresh bread drifts through the air, mixing with the smell of damp river mud, drying reeds, and warm grain. Somewhere nearby, a donkey gives a patient call while waiting to carry baskets toward the fields. Chickens scratch softly in the dust beside low walls. A cat slips silently through a doorway, searching for a place where the morning sun feels pleasant but not yet too hot. Everything moves at an easy pace. No one rushes. There is work to be done, but there is also an understanding that the day is long. Energy must be saved. Every movement has its own quiet rhythm. Near the edge of the village, where the houses give way to open farmland, several young boys follow an older farmer. Their steps are uneven as they try to match his calm, steady pace. Some carry small wooden hoes. Others hold woven baskets that are still almost empty. The older man glances back now and then. He smiles without speaking. He remembers walking this same path when he was their age. His father had walked ahead of him just as he now walks ahead of these children. Nothing about the morning feels unusual. It is simply another day. Yet days like this are how knowledge survives. Not through great speeches. Not through written lessons. But through quiet mornings shared beneath the same wide sky. When they reach the fields, the older farmer kneels beside a patch of young barley. He gently runs his fingers across the slender green stalks. The plants sway lightly in the breeze. The children kneel beside him. One boy reaches too quickly and bends a stalk nearly to the ground. The older farmer carefully lifts it upright again. He says only a few words. The grain grows slowly. Our hands must move slowly too. The children nod. It is a small lesson. Simple enough for anyone to understand. But it will stay with them for many years. Across another field, women gather bundles of flax. Their linen garments move gently in the morning wind. They work side by side, speaking softly as their hands move with practiced ease. One woman begins humming a quiet tune. Another joins her after a few moments. Soon the small group shares the melody together. The song is not loud. It is not performed for anyone. It simply helps the work flow gently from one moment to the next. Music has always found its place beside labor. Not to make people work faster. Only to make long hours feel a little lighter. Nearby, a clay jar rests beneath the shade of a woven cover. Inside is beer brewed only a few days earlier. The jar remains cool because it has been partly buried in the earth. When the women pause to rest, one carefully pours the drink into simple cups. Each takes only enough to refresh herself before returning to work. The beer is familiar. Comforting. No one speaks about its taste. There is no need. Its presence is as ordinary as the morning breeze. Farther along the Nile, a busy landing place has become filled with activity. Large boats arrive one after another, drifting gently toward the shore before being guided into place with long wooden poles. Men standing knee-deep in the water steady the vessels while others begin unloading cargo. Heavy sacks of grain are lifted onto waiting shoulders. Bundles of papyrus are stacked neatly beneath shaded shelters. Clay jars pass carefully from one pair of hands to another. Every movement is deliberate. A dropped jar would mean the loss of many weeks of careful work. The workers know this. They lift each vessel with respect. Among the cargo are dozens of jars filled with beer. Some are marked for nearby villages. Others will continue farther along the river. A scribe sits beneath a simple canopy, recording every delivery. His reed pen moves steadily across the papyrus. He counts each jar. He notes its destination. He pauses occasionally to sharpen the tip of his pen before continuing. His work is quiet, patient, just like the work of everyone around him. Without careful records, supplies might be lost. Without supplies, workers might go hungry. Even those who never touch the fields help sustain daily life. Not far away, inside a larger brewery, another batch of beer has reached an important stage. The master brewer walks slowly between the clay vats. He does not hurry. His eyes observe everything. The color of the liquid. The smell rising from each vessel. The tiny bubbles gathering along the surface. Young apprentices follow him closely. They carry small wooden paddles and clean linen cloths. One apprentice asks a quiet question. The master brewer smiles gently. Instead of answering immediately, he lifts a small cup from one vat. He studies it in the light. Then he offers it to the apprentice. "Tell me what you notice." The young man tastes carefully. He hesitates. "It is sweeter than yesterday." The older brewer nods. "It is changing." Nothing more needs to be said. The lesson has been learned. Good brewing depends upon careful attention. Every day the mixture changes a little. Every day it asks for something different. The apprentices will spend many years learning these small changes. There are no shortcuts. Only patience. The brewery itself feels peaceful despite the steady work. The thick mud brick walls keep much of the heat outside. Large storage jars line the room like silent guardians. Some are empty. Some are nearly full. Others quietly continue fermenting beneath tightly woven covers. The scent of grain fills every corner. It settles into clothing. It clings to hair. Visitors can often recognize a brewer before seeing him, simply by the familiar smell that follows wherever he goes. Outside, the sun climbs higher. The warmth becomes more noticeable. Workers begin tying simple linen cloths around their heads to shield themselves from the bright light. The first beads of sweat appear along weathered faces. Still, the pace remains steady. No one wastes energy. Even the animals seem to understand the rhythm of the day. Oxen pull wooden plows with slow determination. They never rush. Their heavy breathing blends with the creaking of leather harnesses. The farmers guiding them speak quietly. Sometimes only a gentle touch upon the shoulder is enough to guide the animals in the right direction. Near one irrigation canal, two brothers repair a section of the bank that has begun to crumble. They press wet mud into place with their hands. Again and again. The work is messy. Their arms become coated with clay almost to the elbows. They laugh softly when one accidentally splashes the other. The laughter lasts only a moment. Then they return to their task. The canal must hold. Without it, precious water could escape before reaching the fields beyond. A little farther away, their mother approaches carrying a woven basket. Inside are fresh loaves of bread still wrapped in cloth. Beside them rests a familiar clay jug. The brothers wipe their hands before accepting the meal. They sit together beneath the shade of an acacia tree. The branches offer just enough protection from the strengthening sun. Their mother pours beer into two simple cups. The younger brother drinks first. He closes his eyes for a brief moment. The drink is cool. Refreshing. He smiles quietly. His older brother tears a loaf of bread in half. No words are needed. He simply hands one piece across. These small acts of sharing happen every day. They are so common that few people think about them. Yet they quietly hold families together. The meal is simple. Bread, beer, a few onions, some figs gathered earlier in the week. Nothing extravagant. Everything satisfying. When they finish, the cups are rinsed with a little water and carefully placed back into the basket. Nothing is left behind. Nothing is wasted. Soon the brothers return to repairing the canal. The water flows smoothly once again. It glitters beneath the morning sunlight before disappearing into the fields where young crops wait. High above them, birds circle lazily in the warming air. Their shadows drift silently across the earth. The sky has become a clear, endless blue. Clouds are rare here. The sun shines with quiet certainty. Every person knows that by midday the heat will become much heavier. For now, however, the morning still carries enough freshness to make work pleasant. Along the paths leading between neighboring villages, travelers continue their steady journeys. A merchant balances woven baskets across the back of a patient donkey. Inside are small pottery cups, finely woven mats, and several sealed jars of beer purchased from a respected brewer upriver. He hopes to trade them at the next settlement before returning home in a few days. He has made this journey many times. He knows where the shade appears during the hottest hours. He knows which wells offer the sweetest water. He knows which villages welcome travelers with kindness. The road itself has become as familiar to him as the rooms of his own home. As the sun continues its climb, life across the Nile Valley settles into another peaceful morning of honest labor. The farmers tend their crops. The brewers watch their fermenting grain. The potters shape fresh jars. The scribes fill their records. The fishermen cast their nets. The builders raise another carefully measured stone. And in homes, workshops, fields, and boats alike, beer remains a quiet companion, not a luxury, not a reward, but a trusted part of daily life, carried gently through the hours just as faithfully as the timeless river that nourishes them all. By the time the sun has climbed well above the eastern hills, the cool softness of morning has become only a memory. The warmth now rests across the Nile Valley like a gentle blanket that grows a little heavier with every passing hour. The sky is clear from one horizon to the other, a wide stretch of pale blue that seems almost endless above the fields and villages. The light falls across the river in bright ribbons that dance with every small ripple. Along the banks, tall papyrus reeds sway quietly. Their green tops move together whenever a breeze arrives from the north, creating a soft rustling sound that many people have heard every day since they were children. For the workers, this is the part of the morning when steady effort becomes even more important. The day is still young. Many hours remain. There is no reason to hurry. Near one of the larger farming villages, a pair of oxen pulls a wooden plow through rich black soil left behind by the Nile's last flood. Their broad shoulders move with calm strength. Leather straps creak softly. The wooden beam leaves neat lines behind it as it cuts through the earth. Walking beside them is a farmer whose face has grown dark from many seasons beneath the Egyptian sun. His hands rest lightly upon the plow. He watches the ground carefully. A stone hidden beneath the soil could damage the wooden blade. Roots from old plants must be cleared away. Every few moments he pauses to brush loose earth from the plow before continuing. His son follows a few steps behind with a woven basket filled with seed. The boy cannot be more than 10 years old. His feet are still small enough to leave light footprints in the soft soil. His father has shown him how to scatter grain with an even hand. Not too much in one place. Not too little in another. The boy tries very hard. Sometimes he throws the grain a little too widely. Sometimes too close together. His father never scolds him. Instead, he quietly demonstrates once more. The boy watches carefully. Then he tries again. Little by little, his hands begin to understand. There is something peaceful about learning in this way. No lessons written upon papyrus. No classroom. Only open fields, patient guidance, and the slow passing of seasons. Knowledge settles into the hands before it settles into the mind. A little farther away, several women are kneeling beside rows of vegetables growing close to an irrigation channel. The water moves gently through the narrow trench, sparkling beneath the bright sunlight. One woman cups a little water in her hands and lets it fall carefully around the roots of a young plant. Another removes small weeds growing between the rows. Their conversation is quiet. They speak about ordinary things. A child who has begun losing his first teeth. An elderly neighbor whose knees have become stiff. A wedding expected after the coming harvest. Someone mentions that the brewer's newest batch has a pleasant sweetness. Another agrees with a smile. These conversations drift as slowly as the water beside them. No one feels the need to fill every silence. The pauses themselves are comfortable. Above them, a pair of white birds glides across the fields before settling near the river. The women watch for a moment. Then they return to their work. Across the village, the sounds of another craft echo gently from an open courtyard. A carpenter shapes a piece of acacia wood with a bronze blade. Thin curls of fragrant wood fall to the ground. The smell is warm and clean. Beside him sits a nearly finished stool. Its legs are smooth. Its seat has been carefully polished with stone until it feels pleasant beneath the hand. His apprentice sweeps away the wood shavings before bringing another piece of timber. The older craftsman nods with quiet approval. He remembers how uncertain his own hands once felt. Wood has its own character. Some pieces bend easily. Others resist every tool. Learning to understand each piece takes years. Patience, once again, becomes the greatest teacher. Near the carpenter's workshop stands a small storage room where finished furniture waits before being delivered. Against one wall are several sturdy wooden racks built especially for holding heavy clay jars. Many of those jars will eventually be filled with beer. Strong shelves matter. A cracked support could send weeks of careful brewing crashing onto the floor. Even those who never brew think about beer while doing their work. Every occupation quietly touches another. As the sun climbs higher, a group of laborers working on a canal pauses beneath a grove of date palms. The shade is welcome. Though it covers only a small patch of ground, it feels wonderfully cool after standing beneath the open sky. The men sit upon woven mats spread across the earth. One removes his sandals and brushes away fine grains of sand that have collected beneath his feet. Another stretches his back before leaning comfortably against the trunk of a palm. A large clay jar stands in the center of the group. Its sides are damp. Earlier that morning, someone poured cool water over the outside of the jar. As the moisture slowly evaporates, it helps keep the contents inside pleasantly cool. One worker removes the stopper. The familiar scent of grain rises gently into the air. He pours beer into several small cups. The drink is thick enough that tiny bits of barley settle toward the bottom. Each man stirs his cup with a finger before drinking. No one gulps it quickly. The first few mouthfuls are slow. The coolness spreads gently through tired bodies. Someone sighs with quiet contentment. Not because the beer is extraordinary. Because it is dependable. Because after many hours of work, familiar things bring the deepest comfort. The laborers share fresh bread alongside the drink. One man produces a handful of dates wrapped inside a linen cloth. Without speaking, he places them in the middle of the group. Everyone takes one. No one takes more than needed. Generosity in small things has become a habit. The meal lasts only a short while. Soon the cups are emptied. The jar is sealed once more. The workers stand, dust the sand from their clothing, and return to repairing the canal. The earth waits patiently. The water waits patiently. The work waits patiently. Nothing has changed during their brief rest. Farther along the Nile, a busy marketplace slowly fills with activity. The marketplace is not loud in the way that modern cities often are. Voices rise and fall gently. Donkeys shuffle through the crowd. Pottery clinks softly as merchants arrange their goods. Bundles of onions, garlic, lettuce, cucumbers, and herbs lie neatly upon woven mats. Fish caught before dawn glisten in the sunlight. Fresh bread rests inside baskets covered with linen cloths. Several brewers have brought jars of beer for trade. Their vessels vary slightly in size and shape. Some brews are darker. Others lighter. A few contain dates or herbs that give the drink a sweeter taste. Customers approach slowly. There is no great hurry. One woman asks to taste a small cup before making her choice. The brewer happily agrees. He watches her expression carefully. She smiles. A few quiet words follow. Soon a jar changes hands. Both people seem satisfied. The exchange is simple. Respectful. The marketplace is not only a place to buy and sell. It is also where news travels. A boat arrived from the south. The flood this year may be generous. A family welcomed a healthy child. An elderly potter has finally decided to let his son manage the workshop. These pieces of news pass gently from one conversation to another. No one announces them loudly. They simply drip through the marketplace like the warm morning breeze. Near one corner sits an elderly storyteller. He no longer works in the fields. His body has become too frail for long hours of labor. Instead, he shares memories. Children gather around him while their parents continue shopping nearby. The storyteller speaks softly. He tells of the Nile when he was a young boy. He remembers especially high floods that left rich black soil across every field. He remembers helping his own father carry jars of beer to workers repairing a temple wall. He describes the smell of fresh grain after harvest. The children listen closely. One little girl asks whether the beer tasted the same back then. The old man chuckles quietly. He thinks for a long moment. Then he smiles. It tasted like home. The children seem satisfied with that answer. Perhaps they understand more than they realize. For many people across ancient Egypt, beer is far more than a drink. It carries the memory of family, of shared meals, of tired evenings after honest work, of bread fresh from the oven, of harvest celebrations that remain gentle rather than grand, of ordinary days that quietly become a lifetime. As the morning slowly approaches its hottest hours, the pace across the valley becomes even more measured. Workers shorten their steps. Voices grow quieter. Animals seek patches of shade. The river continues flowing with the same calm certainty it has shown for thousands of years. Boats drift along its shining surface. Fields drink from its waters. Villages depend upon its generous floods. And throughout this peaceful land, from humble homes to busy workshops, from broad fields to quiet boats, clay jars filled with carefully brewed beer continue their gentle journey from hand to hand, nourishing the ordinary men and women whose patient lives form the steady heartbeat of ancient Egypt. As the sun continues its slow climb toward the very center of the sky, the light becomes almost white. The warm golden colors of the early morning have faded, replaced by the bright stillness of approaching midday. Every stone seems to hold its own small piece of sunlight. The air above the roads shimmers gently, and distant trees appear to waver in the heat. The workers know this feeling well. It comes every day. It asks them to slow their movements, to breathe a little more deeply, and to save their strength for the long afternoon that still lies ahead. Across the fields beside the Nile, the steady sounds of labor continue. A wooden hoe presses into soft earth. Water trickles quietly through narrow irrigation channels. The rustle of barley rises and falls with the breeze. Somewhere a pair of oxen turns patiently at the end of a row before beginning another slow pass across the field. No one counts the number of steps taken. There would be too many. Instead, each person simply follows the rhythm that has shaped the seasons for generations. Near one canal, a young farmer pauses beside an elderly woman who is carefully tying bundles of harvested flax. She is his grandmother. Her hands move more slowly now than they once did, but they remain wonderfully sure. The fibers are gathered into neat bundles with strips of woven reed. Every knot is firm. Every bundle is almost exactly the same size. The young man watches her for a moment before kneeling beside her. Without speaking, he begins helping. She notices. A gentle smile appears across her weathered face. "You've learned," she says quietly. The young man smiles back. "I learned from you." For a little while they work together without another word. The silence between them is peaceful. It does not ask to be filled. The work itself becomes their conversation. Nearby, under the broad shade of a sycamore tree, several children gather around large baskets filled with barley. Their task is simple. Small stones and broken pieces of straw must be picked out before the grain is carried away. Tiny fingers move carefully through the golden kernels. The children speak softly while they work. One boy wonders how many loaves of bread could be made from such a large basket. Another wonders how much beer it might become. An older girl laughs gently. Enough for a great many workers. The younger children nod with wide eyes. To them, the baskets seem enormous. To the adults, they are only one small part of the harvest. Across the village, a brewer steps outside his workshop for a brief moment. The cool darkness inside has protected him from the strongest sunlight. Now the brightness almost makes him blink. He lifts a hand to shade his eyes and looks toward the river. A line of boats is moving slowly downstream. Some carry grain. Others carry limestone blocks. One boat carries nothing but large clay jars sealed with carefully shaped stoppers. Even from a distance, the brewer recognizes their shape. Beer. Perhaps brewed in another village. Perhaps destined for temple workers many miles away. He wonders briefly who made it. Was it an old friend? A brewer he met many harvests ago? Someone he has never known? The thought passes as quietly as it came. There is more work waiting. Inside the brewery, the air is rich with the comforting scent of warm grain. Large clay vats stand quietly in neat rows. Some hold mixtures that were started only yesterday. Others have been slowly changing for several days. Each vat is at a different stage. Each asks for something slightly different. One apprentice carefully stirs a thick mixture using a long wooden paddle. The movement is slow. He pushes downward, turns, lifts, then begins again. His teacher watches without interruption. After several minutes, The older brewer gently places a hand on the paddle. Feel the weight. The apprentice pauses. He notices that the mixture has become smoother than it was the day before. The paddle moves more easily. The older man nods. The beer tells us what it needs. The apprentice smiles. He understands a little better now. Not everything can be explained with words. Some things must simply be experienced. Outside the brewery, a potter arrives with several newly fired jars balanced carefully upon a small wooden cart. The jars are beautiful in their simplicity. Their smooth sides glow softly in the sunlight. No two are perfectly identical. Each carries the tiny marks left by human hands. The brewer examines them one by one. He gently taps the side of each vessel with his knuckles. The sound is clear. Strong. No hidden cracks. The potter waits patiently. He knows the inspection is important. A damaged jar could ruin weeks of careful brewing. After checking the final vessel, the brewer smiles warmly. They are excellent. The potter bows his head slightly. No long speeches are exchanged. The work itself speaks clearly enough. Payment will come partly in grain, partly in bread, partly in beer. Each man leaves satisfied. Both understand that their crafts depend upon one another. A little farther along the riverbank, a group of fishermen has returned from the morning's work. Their boats rest gently against the shore. The catch has been good. Silver fish lie neatly arranged inside woven baskets lined with damp reeds. Several women wait nearby. Some have come to purchase fish for the evening meal. Others will preserve part of the catch with salt so it may last much longer. The fishermen begin cleaning their nets. The ropes are spread across the ground. Tiny tiers are repaired immediately. Waiting until tomorrow would only make the damage worse. One older fisherman works beside his grandson. The boy carefully threads new cord through a broken section of the net. His stitches are uneven. The old man quietly adjusts one of them. Then another. Soon the boy begins matching the pattern correctly. He beams with quiet pride. The grandfather reaches into a small basket and removes a piece of fresh bread. He breaks it in two. One half for himself. One half for the child. Beside the bread waits a clay jug. The old man pours only a little beer into a tiny cup for the boy. It is much weaker than the drink prepared for adults. The child sips carefully. To him, it tastes familiar. It tastes like mornings beside the river. Like helping his grandfather. Like home. Around them, the village continues its gentle rhythm. A woman hangs freshly washed linen where the breeze can dry it. A shepherd guides goats toward a shaded enclosure before the hottest part of the day. Two young girls carry water jars balanced gracefully upon their heads. They walk with such steady confidence that hardly a drop spills despite the uneven road beneath their feet. Older women smile as they pass. Soon enough those girls will teach the next generation exactly the same careful balance. Nothing feels hurried. Everything feels practiced. Near the marketplace, a small group of scribes sits beneath a covered shelter. Their work continues even during the growing heat. Papyrus scrolls lie neatly stacked upon low wooden tables. Reed pens rest beside small dishes filled with black and red ink. One scribe carefully records supplies arriving from neighboring villages. Another copies an older document whose edges have begun to wear. The youngest scribe practices writing the same symbols again and again. His teacher watches patiently. A single sign must be formed correctly. Then another. Then another. The work requires calm hands. There is no room for haste. Even here, beer quietly appears. A servant enters carrying a tray with small cups. The scribes pause only briefly. Each drinks a little. The coolness refreshes tired minds just as it refreshes tired muscles in the fields. The work resumes. Pens begin moving once again. As midday approaches, the sunlight grows almost dazzling. The roads become quieter. Travelers search for shade whenever possible. Donkeys stand beneath palm trees with lowered heads. Birds become less active. Even the insects seem to hum more softly. The Nile alone appears unchanged. Its steady current continues without concern for the heat above. A boat glides silently across its shining surface. Its sail catches a gentle northern breeze. The boatman smiles. He knows this wind well. It has carried boats along the river for generations beyond counting. His cargo today includes sacks of barley and several sealed jars of beer destined for workers repairing a canal many miles away. He checks the ropes securing the jars. Everything is firm. He settles back against the wooden steering oar. The river will do much of the work. There is no need to fight its gentle flow. He watches the villages pass one by one. Children wave from the riverbank. Women rinse baskets in the shallows. Farmers pause briefly from their work to watch the boat drift by. Soon it disappears around a gentle bend, continuing its quiet journey beneath the brilliant Egyptian sun. And throughout the valley, as the brightest hours of the day begin to settle over the land, ordinary workers continue their patient labor with the same steady determination their parents knew, and their grandparents before them, finding simple comfort in fresh bread, cool shade, kind neighbors, and the familiar clay jars of beer that have become as constant a companion as the life-giving waters of the Nile itself. The sun now stands high above the Nile Valley, almost directly overhead. Its bright light reaches into every open field, every narrow path, and every quiet courtyard between the mud brick homes. The shadows that stretched long across the ground during the morning have grown short and gentle, gathering close beneath trees, walls, and people alike. This is the warmest part of the day. The people of ancient Egypt have known this moment since childhood. They understand that the desert does not become angry. It simply becomes hot. There is no reason to struggle against it. Instead, they have learned to live with it, adjusting their work to the rhythm of the sun just as they adjust their farming to the rhythm of the Nile. Across the valley, movements become slower. The pace of the morning softens. Tools continue to rise and fall, but with measured care. Voices become quieter. Even laughter seems gentler beneath the weight of the afternoon heat. Near a broad field of ripening barley, several farmers gather beneath a group of date palms whose wide leaves offer a welcome patch of shade. The earth beneath the trees feels cooler than the open ground. Someone spreads woven mats across the sand. Another places a heavy clay jar in the center of the group. The outside of the jar is still damp from water poured over it before sunrise. Tiny drops slowly disappear into the warm air, helping keep the contents pleasantly cool. One of the oldest farmers carefully removes the stopper. The familiar scent rises at once. Warm grain. Gentle sweetness. A hint of fermentation that every worker recognizes immediately. He fills a small cup and hands it to the youngest member of the group. The young man accepts it with both hands. He smiles politely before taking a slow drink. The beer is thick enough that he pauses to stir the cup gently. Small grains resting near the bottom swirl through the liquid. The older men watch him with quiet amusement. Not because he has done anything unusual. Because they remember doing exactly the same thing many years ago. One of them says softly, "The first cup always reminds you how thirsty you truly are." The others nod. No one rushes to answer. The silence that follows feels just as comfortable as the conversation. Nearby, fresh bread is unwrapped from linen cloth. The loaves were baked only a few hours earlier. When one is broken apart, a little warmth still escapes from the center. Pieces are passed from hand to hand. A basket of onions sits beside them. Several ripe figs rest upon a flat wooden tray. The meal is plain. Yet after a morning of honest work, it feels more than enough. The men eat slowly. They have learned that heavy meals during the hottest hours leave the body feeling tired. Simple food serves them better. Bread, beer, fruit, a few vegetables, sometimes fish, sometimes cheese. Enough to continue the day. As they finish, one farmer leans back against the rough trunk of the palm tree. He closes his eyes for only a moment. The breeze moving through the leaves creates a gentle whisper overhead. It sounds almost like water flowing across smooth stones. For a few peaceful minutes, no one speaks. The silence belongs to everyone. Not far away, a young shepherd leads a flock of sheep toward higher ground where the breeze feels a little stronger. The animals move slowly. Some stop to nibble at patches of dry grass growing beside the path. The shepherd does not hurry them. He carries a simple walking stick polished smooth by years of use. His sandals leave faint prints in the dusty earth. Beside him walks his younger sister carrying a woven basket. Inside are their midday meal and a small clay bottle filled with beer that has been mixed with extra water. Their mother prepared it before dawn. The girl proudly carries the basket without complaint. Every so often she glances toward her brother. He smiles. Soon they reach a low hill overlooking the river. From there they can see boats moving quietly through the bright water. The Nile glitters beneath the midday sun. The river seems almost made of light. The shepherd sits beneath the shade of a lone acacia tree. His sister opens the basket. Together they share bread, cucumbers, and the familiar drink. The sheep settle nearby. Many lie down to rest. Only the occasional sound of chewing disturbs the quiet. The world itself seems to pause beneath the warmth of the afternoon. Across the river, in a village known for its potters, the kilns continue burning steadily. Inside one workshop, several finished jars are cooling after many hours inside the fire. The master potter walks slowly among them. He examines each vessel with careful eyes. His fingertips glide across smooth surfaces. He listens as he gently taps each jar. A clear ringing sound tells him the clay has fired well. A dull sound may reveal a hidden weakness. One jar carries a tiny crack near its base. It is small enough that many people might never notice it. The potter notices immediately. He sighs softly. Not with anger. Only with quiet acceptance. Clay is patient. But it is also unpredictable. Some days every jar survives the kill. Other days a few do not. He sets the cracked vessel aside. It may still be useful for storing dry grain. Nothing that can still serve a purpose is carelessly discarded. His apprentice watches carefully. The older man speaks in a calm voice. A good potter does not become proud when every jar is strong. The apprentice listens. And he does not become discouraged when one is weak. The young man nods. Another lesson. Simple. Easy to remember. The afternoon seems full of such lessons. Every task teaches patience. Every season teaches humility. Every day teaches gratitude for ordinary things. Meanwhile, in the cool interior of a temple storehouse, scribes continue counting supplies. Rows of enormous clay jars line the walls. Some contain grain gathered from recent harvests. Others hold oil. Others contain beer prepared for workers serving nearby construction projects and temple estates. The room smells pleasantly of dry barley, fresh reeds, and cool earth. One scribe carefully checks the seal on each jar before recording its contents. Another counts baskets stacked neatly against the far wall. Outside, the bright sunlight feels almost blinding after the cool dimness inside. A young assistant enters carrying several small cups. The scribes pause briefly. Each accepts a drink. No ceremony accompanies the moment. It is simply part of the day. Soon the pens begin moving once more across smooth papyrus. Not far from the temple, the steady sound of weaving fills another shaded courtyard. Wooden looms stand side by side. The women working there have settled into a peaceful rhythm. Thread passes over and under. Wooden beams click softly. Hands move almost without thought. One woman begins telling a story while she works. It is not a tale of gods or kings. Instead, she remembers her father returning home each evening from the fields. He always carried the same clay cup. He would sit quietly upon the roof of their house while watching the sun disappear beyond the western hills. Her mother would pour fresh beer. The family would eat together. No one hurried. The woman smiles gently at the memory. Another weaver nods. Her own childhood had been much the same. Different village. Different family. The same evening routine. It seems that wherever people lived beside the Nile, some moments were shared by nearly everyone. Children playing in dusty streets. Fresh bread cooling beside open windows. Parents returning home with tired feet. Clay cups passed from hand to hand. Soft conversations beneath the first evening stars. These memories become part of the fabric of life, woven together as carefully as the linen growing beneath the women's hands. Back on the river, a cargo boat has tied up beside a quiet landing. The crew has decided to wait until the fiercest heat begins to soften before continuing north. The men sit beneath a woven shelter stretched across the deck. One carefully checks the ropes securing rows of beer jars. Another repairs a worn section of sailcloth using a bone needle and sturdy flax thread. The youngest crew member fills small cups from one of the jars carried for their own journey. The older boatman thanks him with a gentle nod. The beer is cool enough to refresh without making anyone sleepy. It settles comfortably after a meal of bread and dried fish. The river rocks the boat almost gently enough to encourage an afternoon nap. One crewman smiles. If the Nile could sing, he says quietly, I think this is the song it would choose. No one answers immediately. They simply listen. Water touching wood. A bird calling from distant reeds. Wind brushing softly against the sail. Perhaps that is the river's song after all. And so the brightest hours of the day continue to pass with quiet certainty. The fields remain green beside the shining river. The workshops hum gently with patient hands. The breweries watch over their slowly changing vats. The boats drift where the current carries them. The villages breathe together beneath the warm Egyptian sky. And everywhere, in homes both humble and prosperous, among farmers, fishermen, builders, potters, scribes, and merchants, the simple comfort of bread and beer continues to bind ordinary lives together, one peaceful day at a time, beside the timeless waters of the Nile. Little by little, almost too slowly to notice, the afternoon begins to change. The sun is still high, but it has started its long journey toward the western desert. The light remains bright, yet there is a softness waiting far ahead that every worker knows will eventually arrive. The hardest heat will not last forever. Across the Nile Valley, people continue their work with quiet patience. The river flows just as it did in the cool hours before dawn. The fields still sway gently whenever the northern breeze passes through. Palm leaves whisper above shaded paths. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing asks to be hurried. Near a wide bend in the Nile, where the water slows before turning toward another village, several children play along the muddy bank under the careful watch of their mothers. Their games are simple. One child shapes small animals from wet river clay. Another carefully floats tiny reed boats in the shallow water, watching them drift only a few steps before catching them again. A little girl gathers smooth pebbles, arranging them in careful circles upon the ground. She changes their pattern again and again, smiling quietly each time she creates something new. Their laughter is gentle. It rises into the warm air before disappearing beneath the rustling reeds. Not far away, two women kneel beside the river washing linen garments. The cloth is dipped into the water, rubbed carefully against smooth stones, then lifted into the sunlight where tiny drops sparkle before falling back into the river. Their hands never stop moving. Even while they speak softly with one another, every motion remains steady. One woman mentions that her oldest son has begun helping at the brewery. He comes home smelling like barley every evening, she says with a quiet smile. Her friend laughs softly. My husband has smelled the same way for 20 years. They both smile. The scent has become familiar. Comforting, even. When grain, bread, and beer fill the air, it usually means the harvest has been kind and work has gone well. The smell itself carries reassurance. A little farther from the river, beneath a shelter woven from reeds and palm branches, a brewer carefully opens one of his largest fermentation jars. He does not rush. He removes the clay seal slowly, making sure no dust falls inside. Warm air escapes from the vessel. He leans close. His eyes close for a brief moment as he breathes deeply. The smell tells him almost everything he needs to know. Years ago, when he first began learning the craft, he depended upon older brewers to guide him. They would smell the mixture, taste a little, touch the grain. Only then would they explain what they noticed. Now those older teachers are gone. Their hands no longer stir the great vats. Yet their knowledge remains alive. It lives inside his own hands. Inside his own careful senses. He dips a small clay cup into the liquid. The beer is still changing. Not quite finished. He tastes only a little. The sweetness has begun giving way to a richer flavor. Another day. Perhaps two. Then it will be ready. He covers the jar once again. There is no need to hurry nature. Nearby, his youngest apprentice watches closely. The boy cannot be more than 13. He wants to ask many questions. Instead, he simply observes. He has learned that brewing rewards patience more than curiosity. The older brewer notices him standing quietly. Without speaking, he hands the boy the empty tasting cup. The apprentice washes it carefully in clean water before placing it exactly where it belongs. Even the smallest task matters. Every habit built today becomes part of tomorrow's skill. Across the village, a baker removes another batch of bread from the oven. The inside of the bakery is wonderfully warm despite the afternoon heat outside. The thick mud brick walls hold the steady temperature of the ovens. Fresh loaves are arranged upon wooden boards to cool. Some will remain in the village. Others will travel by boat before sunset. A few are already set aside for tomorrow's brewing. The baker brushes flour from his hands. His arms ache pleasantly after lifting heavy dough since before dawn. He glances toward a clay jar standing in the corner of the room. His daughter notices. Without waiting to be asked, she fills a small cup with beer and brings it to him. He thanks her with a quiet nod. The drink is cool, comforting. He sits for only a few moments before returning to his work. Bread waits for no one. Neither does the village that depends upon it. Outside, the marketplace has become calmer than it was earlier in the day. Many travelers have chosen to rest until the strongest heat begins to fade. Merchants sit beneath woven awnings while their donkeys stand nearby with lowered heads. One old merchant slowly repairs the leather strap of a saddlebag. His fingers move carefully despite their age. Beside him rests a clay jug wrapped in damp cloth. Every so often he pours himself a small cup. He drinks thoughtfully while watching people pass through the square. He has traveled these roads for nearly 40 years. He has visited villages from the broad delta in the north to settlements far upriver. He has noticed something that never seems to change. Wherever people live beside the Nile, there is always bread baking somewhere. There is always grain drying in the sun. There is always someone brewing beer. The details may differ. One village prefers a sweeter taste. Another allows the drink to ferment longer. Some add dates. Others use herbs gathered along the river. Yet everywhere, the familiar clay jars appear. They stand quietly in homes, breweries, kitchens, workshops, and storehouses. They are as common as woven baskets or wooden stools. Across the square, a potter has arranged several newly fired cups upon a low table. Each one is slightly different. One has a wider rim. Another sits lower and broader. A woman examines them carefully before choosing two. She runs her fingers along the smooth clay. The potter smiles. He knows exactly what she is thinking. A comfortable cup matters. It rests naturally in the hand after a long day. Its shape becomes familiar. Families often keep the same drinking cups for many years. Tiny chips appear around the edges. The clay grows smoother where fingers have held it thousands of times. Each mark tells a quiet story. Far from the village, in a broad field stretching toward the horizon, a group of harvest workers continues gathering ripe grain. The sound of sickles moving through barley creates a soft, steady whisper. Bundles are tied carefully with straw, then placed upright so they may dry. The workers have spread themselves across the field. From a distance they appear almost like small islands moving slowly through a sea of gold. The breeze carries the scent of ripe grain in every direction. One worker pauses. He looks across the field toward the shimmering Nile. The river seems peaceful from here. Almost dreamlike. He remembers coming to this same field as a child with his mother. She would bring bread wrapped in linen. A small jar of beer. Sometimes a handful of dates. They would sit beneath a tree during the hottest part of the day. She has been gone for many years now. Still, whenever he tastes fresh barley beer after harvest, he remembers those afternoons. Memory often lives inside ordinary things. The smell of warm bread. The rough feel of woven baskets. The sound of sandals upon dry earth. The cool touch of a clay cup held after hours beneath the sun. These simple moments remain long after grand events have faded. Back along the riverbank, fishermen begin preparing for the evening. They know that different fish become active as the light changes. Nets are inspected once again. Small tiers repaired. Wooden oars rubbed with oil. A young fisherman checks the clay jar his wife packed that morning. There is still enough beer left for the journey ahead. He smiles. She always seems to know exactly how much to prepare. Not too little. Not too much. Just enough. The older fishermen tease him gently. One day, one says, you'll learn that wives always know these things before we do. The younger man laughs quietly. The laughter drifts across the calm water. It is warm. Easy. Soon the conversation returns to the river. To currents. To weather. To tomorrow's plans. The sun has begun lowering almost imperceptibly now. Its fierce brightness softens just a little. Long before anyone consciously notices, shadows begin stretching across the earth once more. The birds become more active. A gentle breeze returns from the north. Workers lift their heads. Even without looking directly at the sky, they can feel the day beginning to change. Another evening is slowly making its way toward the Nile. Another evening of warm bread cooling upon wooden boards. Another evening of families gathering upon rooftops. Another evening when clay jars of carefully brewed beer will be opened, cups quietly filled, and ordinary conversations shared beneath the first stars. For the people of ancient Egypt, these evenings are not rare moments to treasure because they are unusual. They are treasured because they come again and again, faithful as the river itself, offering rest after honest labor and gentle comfort before another peaceful dawn arrives over the timeless waters of the Nile. Now the evening has become night once more. The last colors of sunset have quietly slipped beyond the western desert, leaving only a gentle silver moon hanging above the Nile. Its light rests softly upon the water, turning the slow-moving river into a ribbon of pale light that winds peacefully through the sleeping land. The day's work is finished. The fields are still. The workshops have fallen silent. The boats are tied safely along the shore, rocking almost too gently to notice. Inside the villages, the final oil lamps burn with small, steady flames. Many have already gone dark. Families have finished their simple meals. The last pieces of bread have been wrapped in linen for tomorrow morning. Clay cups have been rinsed and placed beside familiar jars. The quiet conversations that drifted through the evening air have slowly faded into comfortable silence. Children are asleep. Some rest inside cool mud brick rooms. Others sleep on flat rooftops beneath the open sky, where the night breeze carries away the warmth of the day. Parents lie nearby, listening for a moment to the peaceful sounds that have surrounded them all their lives. The soft whisper of reeds beside the river. A distant splash somewhere along the bank. The quiet call of a night bird hidden among the palm trees. The gentle breathing of those they love. Nothing asks for attention. Nothing demands to be remembered. The world simply rests. Far away, in a quiet brewery, great clay jars stand patiently in the darkness. Tomorrow they will continue their slow, unseen work. The grain will keep changing. The yeast will keep working. Morning will come, just as it always has. Elsewhere, fresh barley waits inside woven baskets. Bakers will wake before dawn to knead another day's bread. Potters will place new clay upon their wheels. Boatmen will untie ropes damp with morning dew. Farmers will once again walk toward green fields beside the Nile. The rhythm will continue. Not because anyone commands it. Because life itself flows this way. Like the river. Steady. Patient. Enduring. Perhaps that is why beer became such a quiet companion to the people of ancient Egypt. Not because it belonged to celebrations alone. Not because it was rare. But because it belonged to ordinary days. It waited beside fresh bread before sunrise. It traveled with workers beneath the warm desert sun. It rested in the shade during moments of peaceful conversation. It returned home each evening inside familiar clay cups shared among family and friends. It became part of countless small moments that history rarely records. And yet those moments were the ones that truly filled people's lives. Not the crowning of kings. Not the raising of monuments. But the sound of sandals returning home at sunset. The smell of grain drying after harvest. The comfort of sitting beside loved ones after honest work. The cool touch of a clay cup held in tired hands. The quiet feeling that tomorrow would arrive, bringing another chance to work, to eat, to laugh softly, and to rest again beneath the same endless sky. The ancient workers whose names have long been forgotten could never have imagined that thousands of years later, someone might gently wonder about their daily lives. They would probably smile with quiet surprise. To them, their lives seemed ordinary. They planted fields. They repaired canals. They baked bread. They brewed beer. They raised children. They cared for neighbors. They watched the Nile rise and fall, season after season. Their greatness was never found in extraordinary moments. It lived in their steady kindness, their patient hands, their willingness to rise before dawn, work beneath the sun, and return home with enough strength to greet another peaceful evening. As the night grows deeper, even the river seems quieter now. The stars shine with calm certainty above the valley. The moon climbs a little higher. A cool breeze moves gently through the reeds, across the rooftops, and over the sleeping fields before continuing silently into the open desert. The oil lamps burn lower. One by one, they fade into darkness. The villages become still. The breweries become still. The workshops become still. The boats become still. Only the Nile continues its timeless journey, flowing through the night exactly as it did thousands of years ago, carrying moonlight upon its gentle surface. And if you were to stand quietly beside its banks, listening carefully, you might almost imagine hearing the soft footsteps of ordinary workers making their way home after another long day. The sound would be faint, almost lost within the whisper of the reeds. Then even those footsteps would fade, leaving only the quiet river, the cool night air, the peaceful stars above, and the endless, comforting rhythm of ancient Egypt, resting softly beneath the timeless sky, as the world grows still, and sleep comes as gently as the flowing Nile.